Hi everyone, this is Noelle from Petitti's, and we are going to do a lilac spotlight today. Beautiful, beautiful family, obviously very traditional cottage garden type plant. There are obviously bush forms in front of me, but there are also grafted tree forms as well. So we'll talk about all of these today. And of course, I think most of us really appreciate the lilacs for that wonderful fragrance they provide the garden. So let's start out with their favorite environment, if you will. So when you're growing lilacs, you want to start with full sun conditions, okay? They will grow in part shade. They'll actually grow in shade. They just won't perform the best for you. So if you can provide them 6 or more hours of direct sunlight, they are going to be so appreciative. And of course, we'll repay you with bountiful bloom. So really, that's what you're looking for, that full sun condition for them. Second thing is temperature-wise, it's kind of interesting, but if you go down south enough, you'll notice there's not a lot of lilacs down there. They really prefer cooler temperatures, and so they're looking at zones anywhere between zone 3 and zone 8, okay? So you're really looking at maybe negative 30 degrees all the way up to probably 20 degrees or so. And so they really are cold hardy type plants. So they do very, very nicely in the Midwest for us because obviously our winters can get cold, and that's okay because they do appreciate the cold temperatures. I will have to say with those temperatures, again, if you can plant them on an eastern exposure versus a western or southern exposure, and they can get that full sun in the morning, that's a great aspect for them because the buds will come out very, very slowly, and they will end up blooming for a longer period of time for you because of the morning sun and the evening shade protection. So something to think about with those as well. Soil, they're actually pretty tolerant of our clay soil in this area. However, we will always say average soils, amended, well drained, okay, is always a good thing for them. They can take slightly drier conditions, but I would always recommend first year you put them in the ground, you want to make sure that you're watering 1 inch of water one time per week, deeply and thoroughly, to get them established. After that first year, they really do very, very nicely in our landscape, and so you don't have to do a lot after that as far as irrigation, unless we're in a drought condition, and just be aware of that. Now, fertilizer. Neutral. So we want to use a multi-purpose fertilizer like plant tone and iron tone. We're going to use that combination. We're going to use it twice a year. So spring, so apply your plant tone, iron tone in spring, and then apply it again midsummer. That's pretty standard for most deciduous plant material, which lilacs are, okay? So they're going to lose their leaves, no problem. So that's pretty typical. So all those things, sun, soil, water, temperature, and fertilizer. So what are the features here? Well, obviously they're in the olive family. If you didn't know that, they are native to more Eastern Europe, Asia type areas. And as you can tell, spring blooming. So they are just a wonderful fragrant flower, cut flower, great for borders, accents, all different types of sunny garden spaces that we can fill them with, okay? There's lots of different varieties, and what I'm going to start out with is really the earliest blooming variety and then go to the latest blooming variety. So the earliest blooming is actually Syringa hyacinth flora, okay? And it has hyacinth in the name, so I'll kind of give you a little telltale of, oh, it's the earliest spring blooming lilac, okay? It usually starts to flower about 7 to 10 days before the common lilac. So I do have a hyacinth flora here. They do have pretty standard leaves for the lilac, so they're always going to be this nice bright apple green for you. Have a little bit of a shield shape to it. However, the hyacinth flora are a little bit more disease resistant, which is great powdery mildew wise. And then also you'll find that that can last a long period of time. The flowering can. Proven Winners has a beautiful couple new varieties called Pura. Yes, Pura or Centara Pura, sorry. And Taylor will correct me, of course. But she has pictures, and so she's going to show you. There's a few little spent buds on this one, but like I said, it was an earlier bloomer, so that's going to be the first one in the lilac family to go. Second one is typically your common lilac, or sometimes called a French lilac. So these are Syringa vulgaris, and Syringa vulgaris are the ones that we normally see out in the landscape. Absolutely gorgeous, fairly tall, large shrubs. We're talking somewhere between 8 to 15 foot tall and about 6 to 12 feet wide. So they're big, upright, oval plants. This is a common lilac right here, so it has that true beautiful lavender color, wonderful fragrance. Just all of these are going to have a great fragrance for you. A little bit varied, but still very perfumey for most of the lilacs. And large panicles. So that's why I think you see with the French lilacs or the common lilacs, they always have the biggest, showiest flowers out there. And there are all different colors available, from your whites to your blues to your purples, and also pinks as well. Some single flowers, some double flowers. And when you look at the flower up close, it's always going to have 4 petals and then a small trumpet. So that's always going to be good for your early pollinators. Okay, so common lilac. Now, I forgot to mention spacing on these guys, because again, they can get fairly large. Same with the hyacinth flora, they can get fairly large. So you want to make sure spacing is crucial with this plant family. Make sure you give them a good amount of spacing so they can fill out, but it also helps with air circulation around these plants. It is very important to have good air circulation so you can cut down on some of the disease issues that they do get, which are very, very common, like powdery mildews. We see those on wet seasons, especially during wet seasons on lilacs. Okay, common or French lilac. The next one that we usually start see blooming is going to be more of the Asian type. So we have Miss Kim down here. Miss Kim is considered to be a smaller lilac, but it still grows about 4 to 6 foot tall and wide. Okay, Miss Kim is Syringa patula, and then the smaller leafed variety that's right next to Miss Kim is Syringa mayeri, and that is actually the Palibin lilac or Korean lilac. Okay, these two lilacs, you can tell when you compare them side by side. Miss Kim has a little bit larger leaves. It's a little bit more similar to the common lilac, a little bit of a shield shape or ovate shape. You have nice dense panicles of flowers. They start kind of a darker lavender color, and then when they do open, they can fade to a very, very, very light lavender, almost a white here. There's just a light sheen of purple on it, okay? Still very profuse blooming, absolutely gorgeous. The Palibin lilac, you can tell, a little bit smaller variety, about 3 to 5 foot tall and wide, smaller foliage, so it gives a little bit of a different texture to it. The flowers are going to be a little bit like blush pink. You see a little bit of a pink tone with these, but again, kind of a purpley pink that fades to a lighter pastel purpley pink, okay? These two will also give you a little bit of bronzing in the fall. So that's always really nice. Give yourself a little bit more fall interest out there in the garden. Now we're going to move to the Boomerang, and this is dwarf purple Boomerang right in front of me. And you can tell it has a very, very tight habit. It has very small foliage, kind of similar to the Palibin lilac. So it's a hybrid, it's a cross of other different species. But what you're gonna see with Boomerang is it's going to have those smaller but very profuse flowers. And when it is finished blooming, it is recommended that you trim it when it's done blooming its first bloom cycle in spring, and then it will repeat bloom from there. We can usually get about 2 to 3 repeat bloom cycles on the dwarf Boomerang variety. So there is a purple and there is also a pink with the Boomerangs. Okay, the last lilac and the latest blooming, and it's usually about 2 to 3 weeks after your common lilac, is actually the Preston Lilac, or sometimes called a Canadian lilac. They were developed in Canada. They really are a very cool variety. Foliage is a little bit longer, still that same apple green color on this one. Flowers can be anywhere from pinks to purples, normally is what you see. But I'm going to tell you, when they come out, it extends your lilac show. So this Preston lilac is called James McFarland, and you can tell fairly dark pink flowers here. When it does open it up, it will be a lighter shade of pink when they open. Large panicles, again, so very showy, but a beautiful, beautiful just extender in the lilac season, okay? Right next to me here, I wanted to show you that often lilacs are grafted onto tree standards. And so what we have here is I have the Palibin lilac tree next to me and also Miss Kim lilac tree. And you can tell again, beautiful bud form and blooming here on these trees. They're considered to be a smaller tree. It literally, what happens is we take the shrub form of the lilac and we graft it on top of a standard tree form. So you're basically getting the height of the trunk here plus the lilac on top. So these can grow probably about 6 to 12 foot tall out in the garden as they fill out. Miss Kim's going to be a little bit bigger just because she's a bigger shrub to begin with. But again, beautiful accents, focal points, small space plants with these trees that you can fill out. I think that's about it. Just remember that lilacs really do appreciate that full sun condition. And when you're pruning lilacs, always remember prune immediately after they're finished blooming, okay? They start to develop buds on their stems fairly quickly in summer, and they are staying on those stems until the next season, the next spring. So make sure when you do want to prune them, do it right after they're done, and you will never interfere with the bloom cycle. Another question that folks ask is also about if my lilac's not blooming well, I'm getting enough sun, I'm pruning it when I'm supposed to, what should I do next? We often recommend applying an application of triple phosphate to the soil along with your spring and your summer fertilizer, okay, to kind of push it into bud and bloom cycle again. So try that if you're really having trouble getting them to bloom well for you and everything else is taken care of. That's also a really good thing to try. Enjoy.